recording for Katie Chats at Technicolor in downtown Toronto with Brian O'Day, who is featured in How to Make Money Selling Drugs. How did you get involved in the film?
Well, interestingly enough, years ago I was a pot smuggler, and my operation took place from Southeast Asia into the Pacific Northwest. And at the time, there was a the police chief of Seattle was a guy named Norm Stamper. And Norm's job was to, intercept people like me who were trying to run pot in over the border from Vietnam, actually, is where we were bringing it. And when Matthew was working on this movie and putting it together, he was interviewing people from LEAP, which is a group. LEAP stands for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And Law Enforcement Against Prohibition is made up of about 20,000 plus members who are police officers, former police officers, district attorneys who prosecuted people like me, even judges. And one of the main spokesperson for LEAP today is about to become the police commissioner of Baltimore, Maryland. So a guy by the name of Neil Franklin, who is an incredible person himself. So Matthew approached Norm, who was a spokesperson for LEAP at the time, and Norm said, there's a guy perhaps you should talk to.
An old pro.
Yeah. If you want to talk about making money selling drugs, his last deal was worth $250 million. Maybe you should have a chat with him. His name is Brian O'Day. So I got a call from Matthew asking me would I be interested to participate in the film. And of course I would. I said absolutely. I was in the film business at the time. I had a television show in Canada, was doing pretty well, and I was in the TV business. So it seemed to suit perfectly. And the fact that Norm suggested that I should be in it was just brilliant. Yeah. And Matthew came to Toronto, and we wrangled a couple of tugboats and went out in the harbor and spent a couple of days in the harbor having a conversation. And between that and a conversation at my house and around Toronto, we put together my part of the film.
How are you not in jail?
Well, I was in jail. The last deal I did, that 75 tons, in 1987 was the end of the deal. And I had too much money, not enough brains, and went and bought myself a kilo of cocaine. I had a coke habit, and I just hated keeping going and buying coke from the coke dealer. So I thought if I go get a big block of coke, I won't have to go back for quite a while. Neglecting to pay attention to the fact that whenever I had coke, I always did all of it until it was gone and would go back and get more. And I proceeded to start doing this coke like I was going to do it till it was gone. 8 days later, with no sleep, hiding out at a friend's guest house at a place called the Iverson Movie Ranch, where all the Roy Rogers and Gene Autry movies were made back in the 50s. My friend owned that ranch, and I was hiding in his guest house, and on the 8th day I had a heart attack from an overdose. And I was pronounced dead at the scene, and spent the next month in hospital. And, I just wanted to get sober. I didn't want to do that again. I had shortchanged my family. I traded off time with my family for cocaine abuse. And it struck me when I had that heart attack and when I went out, I remember being given the opportunity, the choice to live or to die. It was my choice. And it seemed to come with the condition that if I chose to live, I had to do it all differently. And I chose living, ended up in hospital, and then I, more than anything, wanted to get and stay sober. So I got into a program right away. And I spent the next 3 years working in a drug rehab as a counselor. 3 years into it, one morning I'm lying in bed and I get a knock on my door. And I was lying in bed, getting ready to get up. I was thinking about a guy who had checked in at the hospital the night before that I wanted to go spend time with. He was a heroin addict, and I thought that I would go spend the day with him. And I was just lying there kind of with my eyes closed, drifting, waiting to climb out of bed, and the knock happened. And without even going to the door, I knew who was knocking on my door. I just knew it. And I rolled over, and from where I was lying, there were mini blinds on the door to my deck where the knock came from. And I could see through a crack in the mini blinds a gun. And I knew immediately that my thoughts were confirmed then. This was the cops. So I opened up the door, and there were two guys standing there with guns in their hands and badges held like that. They said DEA, And one of them said to me, "Are you Brian O'Day?" And I said, "Well, I wish I wasn't, but I am." And he said, "May we come in?" And I said, "Well, you've got the gun." So he said, "Do you have any guns in there?" And I said, "No, I don't." And in they came. 8 of them came down behind them. And they spent the next 6 hours kind of giving me a going over. You know, one of the cops said to me, "Look, we know what you do. You work with dopes and drunks, but this ain't about change or rehabilitation. This is about crushing your life, MFer." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Now do the right thing." And I said, "The right thing? I'd like to call my lawyer." And he said, "Well, we wouldn't call him because we're going to get him next." And they went and arrested my lawyer right after that. So, you know, I just knew that I had to stay sober through this. This normally in my old life would have been an opportunity for me to go run away, get wasted, hide out, and take off. But that option was gone. Getting sober changed all of that. And I knew that the only way to get through this was to go through it. There was no getting around it. This was way too big to climb around or over. There was only one way, and that was through. And so I said, "Look, I have nothing to say about anybody else. I take responsibility for my own behavior. I'm not going to talk about anybody else's behavior. I work out an arrangement." And they said, "Well, unless you cooperate, you're going to get 30 to life. And you have to serve 85% of that. Are you prepared for that?" And I just kept my ground, and I said, "I'm still, no matter what you say, I'm not going to talk about anybody else's behavior. I'll talk about my behavior when the time's right. It's not right now. I want to talk to a lawyer." And so they said, "Okay, we're not going to arrest you today. You've got 30 days to get your act together, and we're coming back with an indictment." And sure enough, 30 days later, I was indicted.
How do you expect audiences to respond to the film?
The film is spectacular. The film is absolutely amazing. It's filled with huge stars who have stories to tell that you will not believe that these stars are saying what they're saying. And I'm not going to blow it for you by telling you their story. So I think the film will be extremely well received. There's certainly a lot of buzz about it in town right now. When the tickets became available at 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning, there were no tickets for this show. No tickets for the premiere, no tickets for any of the other showings. They were all gone. I have my children are here from California, and I don't have tickets for 2 of them at the moment. So, you know, the producer and I are going to be in the lineup on Friday morning at 7 o'clock trying to get more tickets. Surprising, but that's the way it is. But I think it will be extremely well received, and it is not about how you sell drugs and make money, though that's what the title implies. What it really is significant for and about is that why are the drug laws staying the same? Why, in $1 trillion of being spent in this useless drug war, are we still doing the same thing and expecting something different to happen? Nothing's changing. We're locking more people up. That's nothing to brag about. That means what we're doing is not working. And so that's what this film is about. Why are the drug laws staying the same? Because there is a gigantic corporate corrections industry built up around keeping those laws the same. The corporate corrections industry, for example, I'll give you a very recent example of what they're up to and what they're about. In the United States, there's a company that trades on the stock exchange called the Corrections Corporation of America. And they own private prisons around the United States. They operate prisons for the federal government and for state governments in the U.S. for profit. They offered recently, in like 3-4 months ago, to buy every state prison in the United States from the states. Now, every state in the Union is suffering dramatically with their budgets. Every state is having money problems, fiscal issues. So when a company comes by and says, "Look, we'll buy all of your prisons. We'll operate them. We'll pay you for those prisons. One condition only." What's that condition? The condition is, we will buy them if you guarantee us 80% occupancy for the next 20 years. That 80% occupancy can only be fulfilled if they keep the drug laws as they are. Because prisons are filled with drug offenders. Look, 650,000 people get out of prison every year in the United States. 650,000 people, most of whom are in for drugs. There are 3 million people in the prisons in the United States today. most of whom, the majority of offenses, are drug offenses. If we change the laws, if we take a different approach, an approach that might work, that won't be the case. And the Corrections Corporation of America and such companies such as Wackenhut is another prison operator, they'll lose money.
Do you think Matthew knew that this would be the end result of the film, having that message when he started the documentary, or?
That was his purpose for starting the documentary. Matthew feels exactly as I do, and so do all of these stars in this movie: Susan Sarandon, Woody Harrelson, 50 Cent, Eminem. All of these people feel exactly the same as I. Neil Franklin. Neil Franklin spent his life on the streets of Maryland. These are, you know, if you've ever seen Wired, that was the streets of, is it Wired? I'm sorry. Neil spent years chasing people like me and more offensive people than I, mostly drugs. And he realizes that that was a sincere and huge waste of time. And this doesn't work anymore. Now, this is a guy who's about to become the police commissioner of one of the toughest cities in the country, and he's saying legalize drugs.
Where's the best place to find out more information on you and on the film online?
Well, there is a website for the film online, and all you have to do is Google how to make money selling drugs, and you can find out more about it. Of course, IMDb is a great resource for any film, and that gives you a certain amount, plus you can see the trailer there. The film is not yet, we don't have a distribution deal, but I'm sure that'll happen at this festival. That's what this festival is so big for. It's distribution, and there's a lot of buzz about this film. Distribution is definitely going to happen. And about me, my website, brianoday.com, will give you plenty of information about me, probably too much.
Right. And what's next for you? Are you hoping to do more projects along the same lines?
Yes, I am. I wrote a book called High, Confessions of an International Drug Smuggler. That's the U.S. and European title. In Canada, it's called High, Confessions of a Pot Smuggler. It won the Arthur Ellis Award, if I may say so, for Best Nonfiction Crime Writing. That's being developed as a feature film right now. I have commitments from very big players in the United States to participate in it. I'm working with Matthew in that regard, and there's a documentary being put together right now in development about my story. And I have a couple of new shows for Discovery in the U.S. that I'm working on right now as well.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and congratulations, and best of luck at TIFF.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for Katie Chats at Technicolor in downtown Toronto.